Earth is a single point of failure. Now, I was recently talking to a customer, and it turned out that this is one of the customers where it was a stomp the expert type of conversation. And we were talking about HA and BCDR, and he had concerns about putting stuff in the cloud. So we started the conversation, and I tried to educate the customer and basically say, hey, you probably need to deploy in multiple availability zones within the cloud provider. There's usually 2 or more within a single region. Availability zones are the equivalent of an active data center, something that everyone in IT always wanted to do with their on-premises data center. But let's be honest, very few of us were able to ever achieve an active data center. You can do that very easily with the cloud. And again, at least 2 availability zones within a region. In most cases, you're going to have 3 or more. And then he's like, well, what if the region fails? I'm like, okay, well, if the region fails, then, if you have the time, if you have the budget, if you have all of the prerequisites, then I would advise that you deploy in a secondary region within the same cloud provider. And then he's like, well, what if that cloud provider fails? I'm like, okay, but again, if we're talking about a provider like an AWS or an Azure or a Google, the likelihood of the provider failing is very, very, very low, especially across multiple regions. I can give you, hey, maybe they fail across one region. But failing across 2 regions, I mean, something else is going on in the world. But customer insisted, what if, an AWS failed? Okay, this is where multi-cloud can come into play and where you can do the same thing essentially with an Azure or a Google. You start with one region with Azure, multiple availability zones, and then you potentially add a second region within Azure. Well, he then said, well, what if Azure fails? And at that point, it was getting a little frustrating. I'm like, sir, at the end of the day, Earth is a single point of failure. If you're telling me that AWS and Azure failed across multiple regions, then there's something seriously wrong in the world. And the last thing you should probably be thinking about is your environment or your business for that matter. This highlights the importance that as you're working on your data protection plans, as you're working on your BCDR plans, to understand what are you trying to protect against. Is it a flood? Is it a fire? Is it a blizzard? Is it war? Is it ransomware? What are you trying to protect against? And guess what, IT leaders and professionals? You cannot answer this question. This is where your business needs to tell you what to protect it against. This is the importance of having a proper business impact analysis. So Earth is a single point of failure. There's only so much you could do. What if? What if? Earth is a single point of failure. Remember that.